A certain chassid who was financially quite successful came to his Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Rothenberg Alter, the first Rebbe of the Ger Hasidic dynasty. And he came to him for some help. And he related to the Rebbe that while he was successful in business, he was successful in his business relationships, in his tangential social relationships, he was doing just fine. But he often found himself forgetting important things in his personal life, children's birthdays or school plays, dates he had made to sit and have coffee with dear friends, even certain prayers that were close to him, he was forgetting the words. The rabbi looked at the chassid and asked, have you ever found yourself forgetting things like eating and drinking? And the chassid looked at the Rebbe and said, with all honor, Rabbi, of course not. Those are just part of living. And the Rebbe looked him in the eye and said, exactly. You don't forget to eat or drink because you would physically die without them. But you're ignoring the part of your being that allows you to shine, the part of your being that allows you to connect with those you love the most, and the part of you that is a unique flame burning inside you called your soul. You're feeding your body just fine. You're feeding your bank account just fine. But you're starving your soul. In this week's Torah portion, it says, Rak hishamer lecha ushmor nafshecha me'od. Take care of yourself. Hishamer lecha. Take care of yourself. But care for your souls exceedingly. The verse goes on, so that you don't forget the things you saw with your own eyes, so they don't fade from your mind and you can make them known to your children and your children's children. The Rebbe explained to his chassid that when we choose in our lives to not care for our souls, when we abandon the soul to scrounge for scraps of sustenance, those occasional moments of intentional reflection that just happen to come along, when we don't invest in the relationships that truly matter, and when we don't bring love into our lives, then how can we expect our souls to help us hold on to those things that are important? If we don't invest in our souls, said the Rebbe, both as individuals and a community, we end up in the worst possible scenario: alone. At the beginning of the summer, a good friend of mine from high school, actually my hunting buddy, was a cast member on a new reality TV show. I don't do reality TV shows, but I watched a few episodes because unlike what I can imagine most reality TV shows are like, this one did not have makeup artists, did not have massive crews of photographers, didn't have producers to instigate conflict. Rather, 10 people were dropped far apart from each other with a few items of clothing, 10 items for survival, and 4 cameras to film themselves. These were all professional survivalists who knew how to build shelters, to make fires, and to scrounge, forage, and hunt for whatever they needed. You're laughing. Oh. They knew how to survive in the wilderness. But the show was called Alone. Because what ended up being the breaking point for most of the participants when they had to call it in was not the rough conditions or the weather or the snow, but rather being completely alone for months on end. For most of them, it was not their bodies that broke, but their souls. Last Saturday night and Sunday, we observed Tisha B'Av, We recalled the destruction of the first and second temple among the other tragedies that befell the Jewish people, and we gathered at Beth Am, but we gathered apart from one another, not greeting, sitting on the floor and listening to the haunting images portrayed in the book of Eicha. A holiday that is meant to break us down, tear us to our base elements, and bring us literally, metaphorically, to our knees. The opening lines of the book of Eicha point us clearly to what lies at the center of brokenness, and thus provides a hint of what we can do to heal. It says, "Alas, lonely sits the city once great with people. She that was among the nations became like a widow alone, the princess among states. Bitterly she weeps in the night, her cheek wet with tears. There is none to comfort her. All of her friends, all of her allies have betrayed her." We're alone. We are alone, with no one to comfort us. Our brokenness is about alone. So how do we care for our souls? How do we ensure that we're tending to the health of our body and our souls? Just like every flame dances and glows in its own color, when you look at candles, no two candles burn the same. When you look at that Chanukiah, each candle dances a little differently, because every flame is different, and so too every soul is different. And we have different needs. But let me talk about a few, because every flame needs fuel, air, and heat to burn, and every soul needs joy, reflection, music, and companionship. The rabbis of our tradition realize the anguish of loneliness that comes when the soul of an individual and a people are broken. They realize that the healing for such a malady must address the issue at hand, and in the Mishnah it states, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Never were more joyous festivals in Israel than the 15th of Av, Tu B'Av, and the Day of Atonement. For on both of those days, the young maidens would dress in white and go out to the vineyards and seek companionship." Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, was when we broke down. Yesterday was Tu B'Av, 6 days later. And the rabbis are telling us something. You might ask, isn't that a little harsh to tell us to completely turn around our emotion on a dime in 6 days from total brokenness to finding companionship? And the answer is, no, that's not too tough. The path towards rebuilding ourselves must be through connecting with one another. It must be finding companionship and relationship. The only way to healing the places we're broken in our souls is by rebuilding the relationships that have deteriorated regardless of such deterioration. Tu B'Av is a day when those who are alone, who thirst for companionship, can venture out safely. A day to begin healing the loneliness we feel through the year. And yes, Yom Kippur is also a day for companionship. As Mark said, exactly 7 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, we're broken to a point that we can no longer ignore the cracks and fissures that have developed in our souls. We've put off the task of attending to them so long that we may have forgotten what's broken, and thus Tisha B'Av comes to help us see that. But then comes the remedy, and it surrounds us on all sides. Tshuva, returning, repair, and healing is that which we must engage in. We must rebuild what is lost. We must reconnect what has been broken in our connections with each other, with ourselves, and with God. And then we will move together towards a new year and a season of renewal for all of us. Shabbat Shalom.